Okay, so we are working through level 11, challenge 3 of the Algo app. Again, this is a little bit advanced. So if you're sitting and you're like, I'm nowhere near this, a lot of the stuff we haven't learned yet, we're going to learn tomorrow. So after tomorrow, you'll be able to do this, but I'm going to give you, again, a high overview of what we're doing, and then it'll kind of move forward. Okay, so what is going on is we have a couple different variables. We have this var x that equals 2. We have this var y that is an array of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we've got this var z. I don't know why my name keeps going. Okay, var z of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, perfect. Here we have our if statement. Again, this is a conditional statement. The reading was up to today, but if you haven't gotten there, that's okay. We're going to learn about this tomorrow. So I'm actually going to teach on this tomorrow. So if this is the first time you're ever seeing an if else statement, please, 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 please don't stress. You haven't learned it. There is no expectation for you to know it. Okay. From a high level, what this does is if is a keyword. So when JavaScript sees if, it's going to look. And every time we have an if, an else, and then does anybody know what the third option is? So there's if else.
Is there or?
No, there's or, but it's not. There's if, there's else, and then there's something. There's another one.
If else.
Yeah, I think it's else if.
Else if, yeah.
Yeah.
My
So-
bad.
Yeah, you're good. So there's if, there's else if, or there's else, right? Again, we're gonna learn all this tomorrow. What this does is those are 3 keywords, and what JavaScript is expecting is after that keyword, you're gonna have what we call a condition. What this is this is some sort of arithmetic, or is this sort of comparison value, right? And it doesn't always have to be like double equals. It can be like if x is greater than y, if 3 is greater than 4, whatever. It's just looking for some sort of comparison. In this case, we've got some that we have a condition, and there's a few things going on. Now we're going to learn about T diagramming tomorrow, and there is a reading on T diagramming and kind of some walkthroughs, but something that's really good to do, especially when you're first getting started. So we watched Daniel go through this, and he can do it in his head. That's awesome. That's great. It's a little bit advanced. So maybe if you're just starting out, writing it out can be really simple just to keep track of what's going on. So that's what I'm going to do. Here we've got our condition. And so really what we're doing is we're taking this stuff. Remember, with numbers, we can do arithmetic, right? I can add, if this is a number and this is a number, I can add to those, right? And so what we're doing is we're taking those values, and then we are comparing it to this value here. Now, again, I said this off the recording, so I'll say it now. When we've got a double equals, that is a comparison value, right? A single equals is a declarative value, meaning we're declaring new values. X equals 3, right? Y equals 4, that kind of thing. When we have a double equals, it's comparing what is on the left with what is on the right. And that's going to generate one of our primitive data types being a Boolean, right? It's either going to give me true, whatever's on the left is equal or greater than or less than or greater than or equal than, whatever our operator is, true, or it's going to give me false, right? 3 is not greater than 4, so it's going to give me false. And so what we're doing is we're taking these values, we're comparing it with this, and we're going to get a Boolean in response. So what I like to do is I like to write this out at the beginning. So here we have this T diagram. I'm going to have Y of X, right? So Y of X, for me, X is 2. So I like to just kind of even, I don't know why I just do this, but I go like, okay, that's Y of 2. And so that equals, and we know how to do that. That's 0, 1, 2, right? So that's 3. Cool. Here, so that's 3. Then I've got Z of 1. So Z of 1. Sorry, I'm writing this with a mouse. 1. So sorry if it's trash. That's equal to 6, or not 6, it's 7, right?
Yep.
7. So then we're saying, okay, 3 plus 7. We know we can hopefully do that in our head. That's 10. So on the left side, we're saying, is 10 equal to whatever is on the right? Well, on the right is z of 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 10. Is 10 equal to 10? Well, it is, right? 10 is equal to 10. That will give us a Boolean of true. So it's going to say yes. When we get that, what happens is if it comes back as true, then we enter our conditional statement. It's called entering our statement. That means that whatever is after, let me clear out some of this. Let's kind of go back a little bit. We have our if statement, or else if, or else. Else doesn't have to have a value after because it's kind of like the bucket. It's like any other condition. That's fine. After that, though, we'll have this curly boy, this bracket, right? And so what this does is this is the beginning of our if statement, and this is the end. And so if this comes out to be true, then it enters into our statement and does whatever lines of code it says. In this case, we only have one that says console log dojo, but it could be 1,000 lines. If we wanted to, it would still do just whatever's in that bracket. Had this been false, if this condition enters in, or if it renders and computer figures it out and it's false, it skips this code and then it goes on to the next thing. So even if we had 1,000 lines of code of what to do, if this was false, it would never read it. It would just skip on to it. Now for this one, we don't have an else if, and that's where you have like, if I had a bunch of different conditions that I wanted to follow, that's where else if comes in. In this case, we just have an else saying, hi, it either does match, and I want you to do dojo, or it does not, and then I want you to console log hello world. In this case, we saw that 10 does equal 10. So then our answer is dojo, just like my friend Daniel said. We submit it, and then we got it right. Okay. Any questions on that? Does that make sense? From a little bit of a high level? Cool. Good job. Now, a little bit of a maybe you guys know it, maybe you don't. Maybe you've read ahead. So we said that this was declarative, right? If I just have a single equal sign, that's declarative. If I've got a double equal sign, that's comparative, right? That looks like a funny face. What happens if I have a triple equal sign in JavaScript? Does anybody know?
No, I like before came on the program, I was really into Python, so like I'm just learning all the syntax and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen a triple equal sign.
Yeah. Okay. Any guesses? Maybe think about, remember the weird thing that happened when we tried to add our birth date to our age yesterday. Do you remember what happened?
Created a string.
Created a string, right? And what that did is it didn't care what data type it was. So the same thing happens when we're doing comparisons. If I were to say x equals 4, y equals 4. These are not the same, right? One is a number and one is a string. But if I were to say if x equals y, because I did double equals, it is it's like a loose comparison. So what JavaScript, again, it was built in 6 days. What JavaScript will do is it'll just sort of convert them to the same thing, same data type, and compare just the values, 4 and 4. And they'll say, yep, cool, these are equal. This is true. What the triple equals does is it is a strict comparison. So not only do the values have to be the same, but the type also has to be the same. So if I were to then say x of, which is 4, which is a number, if does that equal y, which is a string of 4, it's going to give me false. It's going to say it can't, though they're both 4 technically. One of them is a string and one of them is a number, and they are not the same. We're comparing those two, and they are not the exact same. So that's a fun little fact for you. Okay. Great. That's awesome. Thanks, Daniel, for kind of walking us through a couple of these. I do want to give, for anybody that showed up late, what I like to do is for the first 20 to 30 minutes, 15 if nobody has anything, but 20 to 30 minutes, since we're already 22 minutes in. If people have questions with office hour, I like to give at least time for questions. That's really what office hour is designed for. So if there's any questions, please feel free to ask them now, or if anybody's struggling with some code or wrote some code, but they want to get a review for it, please ask now. Okay, so we are still recording. The question was, is there a way to have a string and concatenate, meaning add them together without using plus signs? So yes, there is, it's called string. So let's just first talk about concatenation. We didn't really talk about it yesterday. Concatenation. Okay. So let's say that I've got a var beginning. That's too long, but whatever. It says hello. And then I've got a cool. And I want to say let phrase. If you don't know what hello world is, it's common practice in development, especially when you start with a new language. The first thing you always write is hello world. So if you are always wondering why everything says hello world, that's just kind of why. It's like an industry thing that, like, your first thing of writing a new language. I think that was like the first thing that was written in something. And so then it has become kind of everybody writes hello world. Okay. So what I can do is concatenate my strings. And we kind of saw this yesterday when we were talking about those weird JavaScript things with the string plus a number, but I could say something like beginning plus int. Now, the challenge is if I console.log phrase, that what you'll see, can anybody anticipate what's going to happen here?
I'm just gonna guess it's gonna say hello world.
Sure. Anything weird going to happen?
So they're gonna be one blob. There's no space.
No space, exactly, right? So if I were to run this, I get hello world, no space. So one way to fix this, and this is kind of an older way, is to put a space and then do this, right? And so now if I come back and I run this, I get hello world. Another way to fix it is to do this and just have a string, but that gets kind of sloppy. And think of if you had multiple words, you don't want to put a bunch of spaces. Hence where string interpolation comes from, or template strings. So JavaScript came up with a way that we can actually refer to things within a string using template literals. And so what that means is that instead of having to do something like this, right, what I can do is I can do backticks. Now this is going to be on your keyboard. It's going to be on the left side, all the way at the top, right next to the one. You should have a little squiggly called a tilde, and then a backtick. So this backtick, what JavaScript, when it sees it, says, hey, I am expecting that you want to inject some values, some variables within this string. So if we're looking at this in the syntax, we have a text string. If I have something I want to inject, here is how we do that. So I could say $, curly bracket, beginning. Now it is important, the spacing. If I don't want a space before, then that's important. Then here, all I have to do is put a space, right? If I wanted to, and then I say end. So instead of having to do plus signs and add a bunch of stuff, I can just put it within my backticks. Save it, run it. And we get hello world. It's
Cool,
nice
and-
because if I have like things I want to add. Right, I don't have to like have multiple plus signs. I just add it in and then wherever I want that value. So in this case, this end. I just put it with backtick. Whenever you want to put a variable or refer to a variable, you put the dollar sign and then a curly bracket and your variable name, and it will inject those in there.
Sweet, thank you.
Answer- Yeah, great. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, perfect. Looks a lot better than what I have.
Yeah. Yeah, so Python's version is an F string. This is template literal, this is JavaScript. Same,
Great, thank
same
you.
sort of idea though. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah, much better. I don't ever do string concatenation outside of this. I never do plus signs. I don't know why you would. Okay, we have 2 hours of this, so, and I don't, we're just gonna talk a little bit about arrays. So I know some people wanted their code to be looked at. So, anybody want to share their screen? And we can look at their code. I know that I think there was 2 people in the chat who wanted that code. Yeah,
We can look at mine. It's
Okay.
from the project from today.
great. You wanna go
Uh,
ahead and share your screen?
I'm extremely green and I'm just gonna use this as somebody that has never coded in their life. So
That's amazing.
just a second.
Way
let
to
me
be
find this
bold.
here.
Yeah, appreciate for wanting to do that and for sure.
And then just to get help. That's why I'm doing it. So
For sure, absolutely. That's the whole point of office hour.
Let's
I would
see.
much rather any student do that than just not and then struggle, right, alone. So it's awesome.
let me see if I can get this bigger here.
Perfect.
Hang on. Sorry, I got
Just
stuff in the way.
yeah, you're good. If you scroll up, then you should get there.
So yeah, this is basically from somebody that doesn't understand how to code, how I interpreted the directions.
Mhm.
We had the variables from previously, they were scripted as age and height.
Mhm.
And then I just threw, the if, else if, and if statement and kind of went in between and for my conditionals. But obviously not knowing what to do. So I'm
Sure.
gonna take some notes.
Absolutely. Anybody who's this far, maybe Daniel or James or anybody else? Anybody want to try a crack at it? Not because obviously Trey and I love to help, but explaining what you're doing helps you understand a little bit more. So anybody want to try to take a crack at it?
I see they did the stretch portion of it.
Yeah, so I'm on a laptop. I'm just typing it in.
No, I'm talking about because the original assignment was just for the height, and then if you wanted to stretch it, you could do the minimum, include the minimum.
Oh.
And so
Gotcha.
Cool. So maybe line 7. So let's just kind of look at this. What we're doing is we're creating some variables to basically see if guests can ride a roller coaster, right?
Right.
And we have this condition that says if minimum height is greater than or equal to 42, then we want to console log and say, get on that ride, kiddo. Otherwise, you should say, sorry, kiddo, maybe next year. Great. So let's handle that first and foremost. Let's just handle that part.
Okay.
So anybody want to take a crack at maybe the first portion of this?
So the first if statement for the minimum height is 42. Your
Mhm.
variable is going to be the minimum height.
Yeah.
It's already been declared. So it's got to be greater or equal to 42. So
Mhm.
you code it in, it'd be minimum height greater than sign, equal sign, then 42.
Where did we put that?
Line 7.
Okay, so line 7. You're saying that we already have a variable called minimum height, so we can actually refer to that.
Mhm.
So if we get rid of this here, that's string.
Mhm.
you want me to do it? Are you doing it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just delete it all the way?
Just the string within. Your if statement's
Oh.
good.
Gotcha. So height. And we're gonna go back to,
You can get rid of that little.
I've got so much stuff in the way. Hang on.
Yeah, that's my fault, sorry.
Oh, you're good. I'm just
Get rid of this guy.
got stuff in the way. Hang on just a second.
Yeah, no problem.
Minimum height. So we want to get rid of the whole thing you said?
Just your string statement.
Just the string, just the beginning of the string.
I'm not used to this keyboard because I'm on my wife's computer tapped into it, so I'm kind of figure this out.
So like just
Yeah.
get rid of the quotation marks
Yeah.
because you want to reference your variable, not create a string.
We want to just leave it as 42.
No. Keep minimum height in there. Just the very first beginning quotations there. Right, yep, right in front of that. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. And then what do we want to add back? Anything? Or are we just leaving it because it was already declared up here?
You want to get back into your parentheses right after the T. And then space, and then your greater sign. Oh, did you add quotes again?
Parentheses.
Then your greater
Is it
than,
greater sign?
greater than, equal. Go, no space,
No space.
no space,
Okay. Equal.
space. 42.
All right.
Yeah, so let's break that down, right? What we're saying is we have this conditional statement. Again, we haven't learned these, so if this is looking new to you, we're learning all of this tomorrow, so don't stress.
No, I
But
wanted to learn. So it was repeated whenever we were going over it. Just I
Yeah.
had seen it multiple times.
yeah, and that was actually not directed towards you, Michael. That was just more of a generic.
No, I'm
Statement.
not gonna be real honest. That's why I'm doing this, is because I'm
Yeah.
as green as they come. So this is
No, that's
first time
awesome.
exposure to anything.
Yeah, I was the same way when I first learned. I first joined Putting Dojo. So we have this conditional statement, right? And what it's doing is we have this parenthesis, and this is our condition itself. So very rarely we will rarely write a string in there unless we're saying like, hey, if this name equal, if we had like a variable var name equals Will, and then we're saying, hey, if it's Will, say hello, Will, maybe we'd have a string there, but we
Okay.
are referring to our value that we've already declared. So minimum height. Right? What's
Yeah.
nice is this is what we call dynamic, meaning that let's say that this person's 42 and great, they can go because it's greater than or equal to, it's equal to 42. But the next person comes and their height is 34. Well, it's dynamic, right? We can change and we can go in and out and change that. One thing I would maybe suggest is, because this says if minimum height is, what assignment is this? Create variables? Let me pull this up.
Yeah.
Because I would think that if I was building this to make it a little bit easier,
Mhm.
we set minimum height to 42, so that's great. But if we're thinking about it, if a user is going through, that's just going to be their height, right?
Mhm.
And so what I would say is, let me make sure, maybe they will do that. I'm interested in this. I'm gonna make sure that I don't try to confuse you guys.
I'll go back and look at that. Yeah, I didn't know how to write that out. Even Equal to 42.
Okay, so let's think through this a little bit. I'm just reading and I'll put this in chat. So I think that's why I was thinking there was a couple things we're missing here. And so this is the assignment. I just put it in chat. So what it's asking is a local theme park has a ride where the rider must be at least 42 inches tall. Great, we have that, our minimum height. And is over the age of 10. Minimum age, perfect, good question mark. They've hired the development agency you work at to build an app that measures a rider's height and a rider's age and displays whether the rider is tall enough and old enough to ride the roller coaster. You've been tasked with building variables for this app. So there's 4 things that we're needing to build out, right?
Mhm.
We have, what anybody know what those 4 are? We already have 2 of them,
Then the rider's height and rider's age.
rider's height and rider's age, exactly. Right?
Mhm.
Because here is what we're setting our standards to. They have to be this or more,
Okay.
or they have to be minimum age. So let's create 2 more variables. Let's say var, rider's height.
Mhm.
You can just like rider height. Or however you
Rider
want to write
height.
it. Yeah. And I would encourage you, I see you're using snake case. I'd encourage you to use camel case. Just because that's how in JavaScript we do it. I don't know. Do you have some experience in Python?
I have like no experience at
0.
all.
Okay, yeah, so this is what we call snake case, this little line in between. That's a Pythonic way to write a variable. Will it still work? Yes. But usually, like the standard for JavaScript is you would do like minimum, blah, 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 and then it's all one word, and then it has height, any new word, they're combined, and then the second word is capitalized, or
Okay.
the remaining words. So like get rid of this line right here between minimum and height. Yep, and then
Just
make that
just paste
H.
it all, or is it just one?
Nope, it's just one, but the H is capital.
Gotcha.
And so any word, if it had multiple words, any new word after the first one is capital, just like that. Yep.
Hmm.
But if you were to do Python, it does the underscore.
Gotcha. I think I followed it from when I had set it up in the first project from setting up the variables. I think that's how they had it laid out. I think I just
Sure.
copied that.
Sure, okay. So we've got rider height, and now we just need one more. We need rider age, right? And so,
You said
rider
minimum.
age.
Oh, rider age.
Yeah, rider age.
Rider age. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
Okay.
Cool, because we need to know what our rider is, and we need to compare that with our minimums, right, of height and age. Cool. So, just so you guys know, you can in JavaScript declare a variable without actually setting it equal to a value. You can just kind of say, hey, I have this variable that I'll refer to later. So that's why you're not getting any squiggly lines now. This is actually okay code, right? Even though you haven't set rider age or height to anything, later on you can refer to it and say, okay, now rider age equals 30 or whatever. Okay, so now knowing this, what are we comparing? We're wanting to see if my rider's age is greater than or equal to my minimum height.
Yeah.
So in my if statement, what could I change here?
If rider age.
So rider age. So let's go here. Let's go to my actual if statement, unless you want to write that first. Oh yeah, you have to do the comments. So you can do that
Oh,
first.
I got you.
That's fine. You can do that first and then change the code. That's okay.
Do you still, as we did with the variables, write it out that way, or do you just write it out like regular, like
I
rider age? We
personally-
write it as we declared it, right? So
Yeah, you
rider
Well, you could
age like that.
this is just a comment, so you can write it just like.
Okay, I didn't know how
if you wanted to.
specific.
No, that's fine.
Okay, so you said if up here, this needs to be changed to rider age.
Yeah,
Or we go right or height, I guess, first, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I said age, but sorry, I meant height.
No, I know what you meant. But GHT. Okay.
Perfect. So we don't need that parenthesis. We have our comparison, right? Perfect. Now, right now, we are sort of locked into this 42 number, right? And so what we want to do is make our code dynamic. What if, let's say, new stats come out and we've got new rides and there's new safety standards and we're 10 years down the road. And now any rider below 38 inches can, 38 inches or above can ride our rides. Now, if I've got a lot of these conditionals and they're hard coded, this is what we call hard coded with 42, I'm gonna have to go every place in my code and I'm gonna have to change that to 38. Or what if I just I referred to a variable. And so if I needed to change that, instead, I just change it here to 38. And now anywhere that's referred to in my code, it's already changed.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
yes,
Yeah. So instead of putting 42 here, what could I put? To make it a little bit more dynamic and easier to change if I had a big code base. What are we comparing? We're
38.
comparing rider height to
minimum height.
minimum height. Exactly. Yeah, minimum height. So let's go ahead and put that there.
You want to put minimum height?
So
Sorry,
we're
you cut out
comparing-
right when,
Yeah, sorry. We're comparing our rider height to, and we want to make sure that they are greater than what?
42.
42, but what is 42 for us?
The minimum.
That's the minimum.
That's the minimum height, right? So let's go ahead and just make that our variable of minimum height.
So turn this off or do it. We want to erase 42 here then, don't you?
Yep. So erase 42, and then what am I gonna, you still need the greater than or equal to. You're still comparing the two, right?
Greater than or equal to,
Space minimum height.
got you.
Yeah. There we go.
HG.
And this is a good, just kind of lesson to learn is anytime we can refrain from hard coding actual values in our comparison, right? Especially if it's referring to something, we want to always make it dynamic. We want to always refer to our variables compared to just putting 42. Because like I said, let's say on the other end, we realize, oh, actually people who are 50 inches or smaller, 49 inches or smaller actually shouldn't be able to ride rides. I don't want to go in if I've got that in 100 different spots and go change that versus I can just change it in my variable. And then anywhere that's referred to, that's changed. Okay. So we've got this, we've got rider height, minimum height. And what are we trying to do? So if this is greater than or equal to minimum height, then what do we do?
We want to say if rider height is greater than or equal to 42, then the console log should say get on that kid or get on that ride, kiddo.
Okay. So with an if statement, can anybody other than James? Thanks,
Mhm.
James, for your contribution, but anybody other than James? Tell me, what do I need to start my if statement? I mean, obviously I have my if and I have my conditional, but what says, okay, this is what belongs to this if statement?
Curly brackets.
Yeah, exactly, Daniel, curly bracket. So instead
Do you
of
leave,
this.
do you leave this or do you replace that with a curly bracket?
So this is just your comment. This is something that JavaScript, this is a way that you can write like notes. So if you're saying like with your team, you might have a function, you might say like, oh, this refers to blank, or this is going to be deprecated or whatever. These are just comments that you read. Anytime JavaScript sees these double lines, these guys right here, it just says, oh, that's not actual code for this. That's just somebody writing notes basically on the page. So it's not here. It's getting rid of this semicolon and we want to put a curly bracket. The other way. We want to open up a curly bracket. Yep, just like that. Now, usually what I do is, now where your cursor's in the middle, press return.
Yep.
Perfect. Great. This is just it's just a formatting thing. It'd work just fine if you didn't press return, but you know, here we go. So now with our if statement, we're saying, okay, if this condition is true, then I want you to jump into my curly brackets and do whatever it's supposed to do. And so what is it supposed to do?
Right. Yeah, I should say get on that red kiddo.
Okay, so let's make it do that.
Do you still quotations around that?
Nope, we only do quotations if we're doing a string. Console log is a
String,
built-in
okay.
methodology, yeah.
Get on.
So, or sorry, we have to console log, right?
Gotcha.
Console
Console
logs,
log.
we're saying, yeah, and then we do our parentheses, and because that's what we're
Okay.
wanting to console log. And so you're right, sorry, because this is a string, I thought you were talking about the console log. The get on that ride kiddo is a string, right?
Yeah.
And so if it is a string, then what do we need to do? There you go. Yep, perfect. And let's go ahead and get rid of this space right here. I don't know if that might actually still work, but yeah, perfect. Okay, great. So we're saying, all right, if the rider height is greater than or equal to minimum height, then I want to console log, get on that ride kiddo. Perfect. Otherwise, so otherwise is a keyword, right? Meaning that either one or the other. Of these two, what is kind of my one or the other sort of pickup thing?
Should be the else if, right? And that was the
else
question I
if-
had too, is because
Yeah.
in these notes, it had it to where you could say, maybe that was the stretch part where it was saying your conditionals, but that's kind of what an else if is, isn't it?
So it's
Or
part
is
of your
that just stating
conditional,
the
yeah.
age?
Nope, it's part of your conditional, but else if is, let's say I have multiple conditions, right? If you are over the age of blah, 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 or, then maybe there's another one that says, rider height, if you're greater than the minimum age. But then maybe you've got you can't be too tall either, right? Like maybe I've got multiple, that's where else if comes. When it is binary, meaning that it is either true and it says, get on that ride kiddo, otherwise it's false, saying, sorry kiddo, next year, that is a good indication that we just have an if and an else. So we don't need an else if, that's if we have multiple. So yep, you could do it on one line if you wanted.
Is that
That's
usually on the
fine.
second line?
It's usually the way that we had it, where you just kind of
Okay.
go in the console and then, yeah, just kind of do click right there and then return it. But it's kind of readability is up to you. We want to make sure our code's readable though.
I'll adjust it later. I'm trying to just get my
Yeah.
questions answered first.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. So now we have our if. Now we just need our else. So under this if, let's just go ahead and put an else. So you might need to delete some, there's a red line right there, give a little bit of space. Perfect. So else, we don't have to put a condition because else is our kind of pickup of all things, right? But, so we don't have to put the condition part, but I still need something that says, okay, this is part of my conditional, right? So name my curly brackets. So go ahead and do my curly brackets. Yep. And then what are we wanting to do? Same thing we're doing here, but instead of saying get on that ride kiddo, you're saying sorry kiddo, maybe next year.
That's a string, right?
It's a string, but how am I gonna see that? What do I need to do in order to see it?
Console log.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
So
so
one thing to know
then-
is you just put console log in quotations.
Right,
And so what is gonna happen is it's going to, yeah, there you go.
So
Now
we
we
want
have
to
our
then
parenthesis.
parenthesis.
Yep.
There's a root
And
of lot
then
line.
now we have a string. We're wanting it to console log a string that says, sorry, kiddo, maybe next year.
Sorry, kiddo. Maybe, or get on that right next year. Let's see,
Or it's-
Maybe
it
next
says
year.
Maybe next year, yeah.
next year. Okay.
Uh-huh. Okay, so we got that all good to go. If you've got a minimum age, just so that way other people have chances to ask their questions. We're gonna do the same thing with minimum age, and then tomorrow, we're gonna talk more about conditional, so I think if you're trying to do that stretch goal, I think you'll be able to tomorrow. But, cool, yeah, we've got it. Just on your own time, you can go and take this logic that we just did, apply that to minimum age, and the same sort of thing. Or you can work on it while, cause I'm gonna make sure that, cause I know somebody else wanted to share their code too.
Yeah, I
Um,
was just wanting to get those kinds of things, questions answered first. So I don't want to take
Yeah.
the whole thing. I just wanted to get an idea of how this was actually supposed to look.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. No, it was awesome. Um. Okay,
So from there, really, the rest of this isn't relevant. I mean, you can basically delete all of that and it should come up console log based on the variables we've got. I mean, we really were good then, right?
this will console log only dealing with height. Has
Height,
nothing
and
to
then
do
I would
with
have to do
the
this.
minimum age.
So you can have multiple if or else's, I'm
Uh-huh.
guessing. So we do the same thing for age, minimum age, and then writer age.
Mhm.
And then the contingencies based on either of those the same way, and then
Yep.
that's really it. Okay.
Yeah, before you run it though, you will need to assign a value to writer height, and you'll need to assign a value to writer age. So
Okay.
right now you don't have any values, so you would have to either say, writer height equals 38 or whatever, writer height equals 12.
Sure.
Or it's gonna say, well, I can't compare something that doesn't.
If you're setting that up for a page, let's say it's like an actual user page where somebody's going to come in and enter information
Mhm.
randomly, are we setting parameters from X to X then? I mean, if you're going to have parents that are coming on and saying, okay, I've got 6 kids, 4 of them meet these requirements, 2 of them don't, where are the parameters set? I mean, are you basically setting that in the same code, or is that completely different?
So you're gonna be.
Sorry, that's a random question.
No, that's a great question. So usually there's a couple different ways that you can do it. If you're saving people in a database, then they'll submit
so
that
that is-
information and then we'll ping a database and say, if let's say that I don't know that Disney does this, but let's say that you get a card, right? You have your height,
Sure.
whatever, it's verified, it's on your card, it's saved in a database. And when you go to a ride, you have to ping your card. Maybe it has your picture on it, and then it brings up and it like a green button if you meet the qualifications, or green light if you meet the qualifications, or a red light if you don't, right? In
Right.
that case, what's happening is you have all that information saved in a database, and then whatever's pinging that. So let's say I don't know, Tower of Terror. Let's say that it has different conditions than, I don't know, name another, the Tron ride, which is sick,
Sure.
by the way. What it's doing is whatever's pinging it, it's gonna grab that information, and then the logic in our server or on kind of the hardware is gonna say, okay, I've got the rider's information. Does it match? And then does it meet similar to how we did? It's gonna ping the database and it's gonna get that rider's height, and it's gonna say, cool, for the Tron ride, the minimum height is 42. Do they match this? They do, cool, green. On the other hand, if it's just something that a user puts and inputs from a form, we can grab that information. If we're not dealing with the database, we just want to grab it and see if they verify and they work. We can just, whenever that form is whenever the form, which you guys haven't learned about yet, whenever those are submitted, we can just grab that information straight from whatever's being submitted and then compare it there too. So there's a couple different ways you could do that.
Okay. Cool.
But yeah. Awesome.
Well, appreciate the help, Will.
Yeah, that's what we're here for. That's the whole point of this. I do have a question. I see a question in the chat and maybe Michael, you can answer this. Where is this extended version of this? Is it in the conditionals? The,
far
oh
back?
yeah, so it's in the conditionals. Question, I'm looking at Tyler. If you go to the conditional section, then there is the portion of it that it's called
Oh, yeah.
Code Challenge, get on that ride, and that's where that's being found. Yeah, thanks Trey for putting that. Oh, I see a different one.
Get off of this. It's like blocking my. Where's my learn?
So
Oh,
that,
so,
yeah.
Will, is it not programming basics V22? Ah, no, I'm sorry. I just posted the one for full time. Okay. I see.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you are. Yeah. Yeah, but it's in the condition. I think it's the one that I posted. Yeah, it's the V22 PT. I just did the PT, but if you're flex, then it'll say flex. It might be a little bit different. But same sort of thing. It's just in the conditionals section. It'll show that. Let me snag. Okay, so we're back from our break. We're looking at Dalton's code, still working on this create variables. So let's go ahead and jump in.
So the variable doesn't matter. You can do anything you want, right?
Meaning,
Whenever you're setting the variables, because
Yeah.
these are the constants, right? Like the ones that aren't going to change.
so
so I can set it to whatever.
Change. So just one thing I want to just using the right words. Constants are only if we say instead of var, we say const.
Oh,
right?
so okay.
So they can, in theory, var and let can change. So yeah, if we wanted to change this value later on, we could. Only when it's const, that's when it stays the same.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, I guess it's I'm still learning terminology, really.
Yeah, of course. And that's why I just wanted to make that. I do see one little error.
Okay.
Anybody see what the error right here is? There's an error in between these lines. Anybody see what it is?
The V is capitalized.
Yeah, your V and var.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, so one thing to note is that in computer programming, there's something called an ASCII table. And so what that means is computers only know binary, they know zeros and ones, right? So everything we do on a computer goes down to zeros and ones. And we can basically create like a decipher, and it can know if I give it the number, it's based off a numeric system. And we can show this with 0 and 1s. If I give it the number 64, it knows it's a capital A, but if I give it the number 97, these are just made up numbers. 97, it's a lowercase a. And so all it's reading is, 97 or 64. And so it is really important when we're doing some of these key things, like with true for Boolean, it has to be lowercase because that's just how JavaScript works, right? That's the thing. So it is just one thing to note. It is important to make sure, because if I say var lowercase or var uppercase, those are technically two different things, even though it's the same word. So just so you guys know that. But yeah, that's perfect. You got it all settled and you are now good to go. All right, Dalton, go ahead, take it away.
So then with the else, so if it doesn't match, then it's going to be sorry, kiddo, maybe next year, I believe it was.
Yeah, something like that. Perfect. Now there's one little thing that you can change and needs to change on this line 7. Anybody other than Daniel? Jeff, what do you think? What's different? If we're comparing lines 5 and 7, what is something that's different that we can change? Line
Oh
5
yeah, I
is
haven't gone.
correct.
Oh, okay. I can leave the camel. I was gonna go back and change that camel casing.
Yeah, you can keep it as camel case or you can go in and change it. That's fine.
Okay.
But line 7, there's an issue. And if we're comparing it with line 5, what is the difference? Anybody see it?
I see things I want to change in line 5. I don't see what's wrong with 7.
Well, 7, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, of course.
Line 7, I'm just noticing the squiggly bracket in there,
Yeah.
right after console.log.
Needs to go around, right? Remember, whenever we have our condition, and we haven't learned this, so again, I'm talking about this tomorrow. But when we have our condition, the first thing immediately after is our curly bracket. So in the same way we had if rider height, minimum height, curly bracket, we have else, curly bracket. So we need a curly
Okay.
bracket.
On where? Where is it supposed to go? On console.log?
there.
Oh, I put it in the
No,
wrong
not-
spot.
Yeah, not on console
Ah.
log, but immediately after the else.
Okay, all right.
So it's just how you have if, then you have your condition, and then you have a curly bracket, right? Because
Okay.
else we don't have to put a condition, but we still have to put our curly bracket.
Uh,
Perfect, and so we can delete this one.
oh, I thought I did.
And then we need to finish it.
Uh,
Perfect. Yep, now you're good to go.
all right. So so this isn't popping out as wrong. I thought console log, it does need to go down low, right? Like it has to be on the next string or next line of coding.
No, so it's formatting. Does it have to? No, it's gonna, JavaScript's gonna read it either way. What Daniel was
Okay.
trying to show is that, one thing we sort of want to do is we want to create our code in such a way that it's easy for other developers to also read it. Because whenever we're working on code, oftentimes something that maybe makes sense in our brain, if it's hard for other developers to read, that can be a signal of like bad code, right? Even if it technically works, it can get too confusing.
Okay.
So what Daniel was showing is there's a couple different ways to make it a little bit easier on the eyes and to kind of let your brain process what's going on. So what I typically will do is right here, right after this first curly bracket, I will do a return statement. So right here.
What
in
do you
between
mean
the
by
curly bracket-
returns? What do you mean by
Oh, so yeah,
return statement?
Sorry, I will just go there and then press enter and it'll put my console log in the next line. Yeah, just like that. That's
Okay.
how I like to do it, and that's how you typically see it. Where you've got a curly bracket, this is what's opening, and then it's closing. As you guys are learning, another way to do it is to come on the other side of the curly bracket now and press enter. And I think that this is a great thing to do, so sorry, let's go ahead and delete that line on the other side. So take your cursor to right.
Ah,
here. Perfect.
I
and
can't
press
tell if I
enter.
got it. I think I did. All
Yeah,
right, cool.
You did, perfect. Yeah, so this is what Daniel was showing. This is a better way for me to read it. And so if I'm a developer, if you wrote some feature and let's say you got some big promotion at Apple, right? And you left the company and then I'm coming in and taking over your code. This is a little bit easier for me to come in and say, okay, here's the start of my condition, here's the end of my condition, here's what it's doing. Okay, cool. A little bit easier to read than something like this, right? And so
Okay.
does it have to be here? No. If you kept this just like this, it'll work just fine. So from a
Okay.
technical perspective, it works. From a readability perspective, we like to do something like what's on line 6 through 8.
Okay, so I can just go through here and do this and
Yep.
it's going to work. Oh, whoops, I missed it.
Any combination. Yep. So if you did it like this is how I do it. But if you were to even put the curly bracket on its own line, that would also work fine. Any combination of the three. So like I said, even if you were to keep it all on just one line, it'll still technically work.
Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, great job. And then let's finish it up.
So that would be and console, get on that ride, kiddo. I'll go back and fix that later. Okay, so we did the height and now it needs to say else.
Uh-huh.
Then
Perfect.
and then it would just be whoops. So I used to capitalize in console.log. And parentheses. And is it that one? And go down, right? And I can't see anymore. Okay.
So you don't need to do a curly bracket.
Oh, I don't? Okay. Man, I'm getting
No.
so confused with those.
I know we haven't. I'll teach you on it tomorrow, so no worries.
Console.log, and it would be. Oh, I now forgot the parentheses. Sorry, kiddo, maybe next year.
Yep. Yep. And you don't need this extra line on 19, and you could even take that
Oh, whoops.
bracket up here if you wanted. But it would still work. If you kept that as it was, then it would still work. Great job. Yep, you could do that if you wanted. If you want to do that, you could absolutely do that.
Okay.
That all still
Alright.
works.
All right, cool. I think that's it, right?
Awesome.
Like we did the minimum and the age or the height and the
Mhm.
minimum. Yeah, I think that's
Mhm.
it, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you so much. And thank you for
Yeah,
not
of
laughing at
course.
my code.
Oh, that's no, everybody starts somewhere, my friend. So it's great. The fact that you're even picking this up and I haven't even taught on it is important. One nitpicky thing that I would say, it'll still
Yes,
work, I
please.
just tested it, is typically with console log, you don't have a space in between.
Oh, with where the parentheses are?
Yeah, so
Okay,
normally you
okay.
just keep it as console.log and then parentheses. Yeah,
Good to know.
and that's usually most methods. So most functions that we're gonna use as we get into that, that's why I wanted to get you in the practice now. Because if you were to do this and maybe Python, as you get a little bit more advanced, it might kind of break your code, so. Yeah, cool, great job, Dalton.
All right, thank you so much for your help. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thanks,
of
Michael.
course.
And thank you, Daniel.
Good effort all around. Okay. So anybody else have any questions, any more questions that they would like to get answered during office hour? And if not, I'll teach on something, but this is what office hour is for, something just like this. Tyler asks, how do we run with Node.js? Great question, Tyler. You need to download Node. And so if you've downloaded Node, then you should be able to run. It should be on your computer, and then you just can do a couple of things. You can either say, let me share my screen. Once you downloaded Node, can you guys see my code screen? Or did I give you another screen? You guys see my code screen? Somebody come off mute or something.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, we
Okay,
can see.
perfect. Thanks. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Michael asked where it is. I think you just go to Node.js. You just type Node.js, and then it's right here. And you'll download this. Okay, I'll put this in the chat for you. Okay, so this is what you'll download. And then once you have it downloaded, you can download an extension called Code Runner. And once you download it, you have it, and it allows you to run all these different types of code. I would be careful with the Python one. Your Python teacher will go over this, but don't necessarily use it for Python. It can get confusing. But that's what gives me the little plus button up here. So I'm using Code Runner, but I'll show you how to run it other than that. So here I've got my main.js, right? And this was me testing with that space. But I can come up here, I can highlight and then use Code Runner, and it's only going to run the code that I've highlighted. Perfect. If I don't highlight, so if I don't highlight beginning and end, again, it only runs this code. So it's going to give me an error, right? Because this code right here, line 6, is referring to two variables, beginning and end, but I didn't highlight those. So what it's saying is beginning is not defined. And it didn't even get to end yet. So that's why it doesn't say end was not defined, because it already broke right here. So when you're doing Code Runner, if you don't highlight it also, and you just run it, it'll run the entire page. So that's kind of two ways to do it. Either highlight the code you want to do, then run it, or just don't highlight anything and run it. It's gonna run your entire page. Cool. The other way to do it is within VS Code, you've got what we call a terminal. So if we come up here, so I'm in VS Code. Come up to this top part, I've got a terminal, I can say new terminal. Now, we haven't touched on the terminal yet. Terminal is something you are going to get very, very, very familiar with. You're gonna need to, if I have you in web fundamentals, I usually do an office hour where I walk through the terminal, help you navigate it. And really just kind of give you some practice pieces, because in my opinion, this is a really crucial thing you need to know. But this is the terminal, and all it is really just a way for us to interact with our computer, with files, with pages, without clicking. What we call clicking. So if you think of the desktop and you have your folders or pages, you can click on those. Those are called GUIs, right? They're graphical user interface. You can visually see something. You go over, you click on a folder, it opens up. We can do the same thing in a terminal, but just by navigating where I'm at. So if I do like PWD for present working directory, where I'm at is I'm on my users, I'm in William Calhoun. I went from my desktop to a folder called Coding Dojo. Inside of that folder is another one called instruction. Inside that's September PB. Inside that is this folder called week 1 Wednesday office hour, right? So again, it's just a way we can navigate. All that matters is whenever I create a terminal, it's going to create a terminal wherever you're currently at. So I have this folder that I created. That's what's in my, that's what I'm currently seeing. And I have this file in main.js, right? So if I look inside using ls, this is for Mac. I think it's dir for Windows. What it's just saying is, hey, what do I have access to? I have this file. Cool. If I want to run it with Node.js, I can say node space main.js or whatever my file name is, and that will then go run this page. So if I want to run it with this, now if you try to do this and it says node is not a keyword, or I don't know what node is, something along those lines, what that says is either you haven't downloaded it, or if you're on a Windows, you have to create what we call an environment variable. TAs can absolutely walk you through that in a Dojo Hall. I don't have a Windows, so I can't emulate it. But you need to create an environment variable just to basically say, hey, computer, when I say node, I want you to use this package that I just downloaded, being Node.js. So if you do say node or node dash, I think it's version, you should get whatever version you downloaded. So right now is 18.17.1. I have 18.13.0, which is fine. It's not super behind. But you guys would have 18.17.1. So that's how you would run with Node, right? You have Node downloaded. You have to have it downloaded for CodeRunner to work. And then you can either use CodeRunner, or you can just say node and then your file name, and it will run your entire file. Now, if you use CodeRunner, you have the ability to just highlight specific code. So if you have a whole bunch of code and you just want to run just one thing, CodeRunner gives you that availability. If you just use the terminal, it doesn't have that availability, and it just runs the entire page. So that's two ways, two things to think through when you are dealing with that. Cool. Hopefully that answered the question in the chat. Daniel has a question. Is there somewhere I can practice pure JavaScript syntax? Do you mean just kind of understanding like camel casing and different things, or can you expand on that, Daniel?
Yeah, it's just that I'm so used to Python. Like
Sure.
it's basically the same thing,
Mhm.
but there's just slight differences. So is there somewhere where I can just like learn the JS syntax and be able to like run with it?
Yeah, so I don't know, Trey, maybe do you know?
Yes,
Yes, there
that's
might
a
be
good idea.
a cheat sheet, kind of a comparison.
Yeah,
I
I just
don't
didn't
really
know.
Go ahead.
I just didn't know if that was in all of the reading stuff, are we learning all the syntax and stuff in the reading, or is it,
So
I need to go
you
look that up?
will, you will. So programming basics isn't super heavy on that. Web fundamentals is. So web fundamentals, you're gonna have lots of, so this is kind of just getting us, here's some logic, let's think in a certain way.
Okay,
And then when we get to web fundamentals, again, we're using JavaScript, and that's when you're gonna use vanilla JavaScript. We're gonna really dive into JavaScript and objects and using different things there. So you'll get plenty of practice. And then within that is lots of like algorithm challenges to actually build out and write code within JavaScript. So you'll get plenty of practice there.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, for the next maybe 10 minutes, I did want to talk about one thing that we could practice. But I'm gonna change and cancel our recording. So